Top of the morning to you. Or afternoon.
Man.
We are live for St. Patrick's Day. St. Patty's. Let me share this.
It is. So instead of sitting at a bar, we're here for you guys. Also just drinking beer and not really doing anything productive. But yeah. We haven't had one of these live episodes in a while. We did the Oscar recap. That was live. Did you guys enjoy how totally unrecognizably drunk I was?
That's why they tune in.
But yeah, no. So I just got here to Mike's. We're recording 3 episodes today. We're going to be doing, I'm not sure in what order it would be.
We're doing Red Sparrow, Game Night, and A Wrinkle in Time. Disney Oprah's A Wrinkle in Time.
Oh, Disney Oprah?
Disney Oprah's. Distinct from regular Oprah.
Yeah.
No shots. We have to pace ourselves because we're recording 3 episodes today.
But yeah, we were just talking about what we were going to talk about on here very briefly before we press the live button, and there's not much that we can talk about to continue. We're not going to talk about the Oscars again, but we could talk about kind of how the Oscars were pretty down in viewership.
Wasn't it the worst?
Yeah, or it was at least down like 13 or 16% viewership.
I guess it couldn't be the worst because there was a time when not everyone had TVs, but
right, it was the worst in
do they
X amount of time. I don't know.
Do they like scale up and down for that with the Nielsen ratings, or
I don't know,
like based on population size
like
and TV owning families?
Yeah, TV inflation. Yeah, I don't know. So that's kind of interesting. I mean, it is kind of one of those things where it could be, regardless of how important the Me Too movement is, a lot of people don't want to hear about it. Kind of like, sometimes you don't want to look at how messy something actually is.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people tune into TV to be entertained and get away from their problems and not face that head on.
I feel like it has to be also just like Jimmy Kimmel hosting for a second time in a row. Like, I feel like people are more likely to tune in if it's like, oh, they haven't hosted before, or that's like, fresh and new. Let's try that out. But when you have Jimmy Kimmel who hosted last year, it's kind of like, all right, well, I watched last year and wasn't too enthused. I mean, last year didn't do great yet either, did it? I remember feeling surprised that Jimmy Kimmel was brought on again.
Yeah,
from a ratings standpoint, even though I liked him last year.
Yeah. It's also one of those years where this felt like a rebuilding year in like a sports team or something. Like there's a lot of new faces who are like, oh, I feel like we're going to see that. There wasn't any, they maybe had like Meryl Streep sitting front and center, but I mean, I feel like if they had, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess there wasn't
a huge celebrity draw, really.
And I mean, like you had people who have been up there a lot, like Denzel Washington, but for a movie that nobody saw.
Right. Like this is going to sound racist, but if Denzel Washington was in like Get Out or something, that would be like an event of kind of like.
Well, yeah, just in terms of the blockbuster nature of it, and even though we had someone nominated from Get Out, it was a relative newcomer for the Academies,
right?
If not film in general.
Again, him, Armie Hammer, Timothée Chalamet, even though none of those people were nominated, it was a lot of new faces, and I'm not going to show you my tits.
Sorry, Paul. Me either. He could have been talking to me.
What makes you think it was him? But yeah, and this is kind of like a gross thought too, but like they really could have got hella viewership if like Wonder Woman was up for Best Picture or something. Like there would have been some sort of narrative.
The thing we always forget is that like the people who are putting on the program aren't the people who are voting. I mean, they might have voting status, but it's not like the committee that's like, oh, who's going to host the Oscars? When is it going to be? Where is it going to be? They're not the people that are, it's voted on by a large swath of members. So they aren't necessarily voting with
Right. No, yeah. I do, Paul. I do remember the dream you told me about this week. I don't want to get into that. But I mean, yeah, that's that. Trump told us so, and but yeah, this is the first, I think, live episode of episode of 2018
of our film year 2018 at least.
Yeah, it felt, geez, we were so, again, if you heard either of our first two episodes with Annihilation and Black Panther, we were kind of this scattered mess. I feel like we can't really like get our bearings until like right now. Like we have like this new type of intro where I'm talking in the beginning. How do you feel about that?
How's that going?
How do you think I'm doing? Yeah, we haven't really talked about the year in film of 2018. I mean, another thing, probably one of the biggest events besides Black Panther, just because these movies are something that just revolve around superheroes now. We got a new Avengers trailer. Which I feel a little more intrigued by. I'm excited at the idea of these people dying, these characters dying. I think in what superhero movies do like superheroes die? Like Marvel's been so lame.
Did they say that anyone's dying? Or?
It's heavily implied, I think. I
don't know if I got that implication. I just assumed that they were based on contracts being up and like. Mm-hmm. It just feels like Avengers Infinity War is just kind of like, all right, let's close off this chapter in, Marvel, right. And we'll kind of bring in the new young guns to move it forward.
Yeah, and I mean, in the comics, they do kill some superheroes in the Civil War kind of arc, but this Civil War looks very different from the comics, so I really have no idea. I mean, again, people have been speculating that it's probably a really wise idea to kill Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, just because he costs so goddamn much money now. It would be...
and I mean, just there's nothing left to explore with that version of the character. Like, he's already had a few iterations of, like, he's no longer really, like, his character arc, even if he hasn't had the best character arcs in individual movies, over this course of whatever, like, he's, think of, like, Iron Man 1,
right,
just like super cocky, like had to be like humbled a little bit, and then think of him like where he's the voice of reason in like Spider-Man: Homecoming,
right?
Or even Civil War.
It would be, again, I don't think Marvel's ever really had stakes of where, like, even the what's the other version of Iron Man that's played by Don Cheadle, and like I feel like in Civil War trailer they were kind of like, whoa, like we've taken some losses, and it showed him on the ground, kind of.
Yeah, and like, it's just like, he broke his leg.
Yeah, they don't even, like, they have, like...
He'll never walk again, but he doesn't need to, because he's in a fucking suit.
Yeah, something as fucking... like, something titled Civil War, nobody even dies, like, and it's this whole fucking amassed... I don't know. It's just dumb. Like, even the X-Men movies were like, we gotta kill some of these people. We gotta raise the stakes. And I feel like these Marvel movies never really do that. Captain America would be cool to see him die. They have that scene where it's just him and Thanos in the house. Just like kind of, they're holding hands and it looks like it's not gonna end well.
Yeah. I'm very curious to see how that does at the box office. Just because, I mean, like, we've already had, like, the crossovers, but, like, this is, like, a mega crossover.
Right.
Like, the biggest of its kind that we've ever really seen. Like, we've had big Star Wars events. We've had big individual movie events. We had Civil War. But this is, like, Marvel is literally pulling, like, everything they have into this. Like, I honestly won't be surprised if, like, there's just a tiny little Deadpool cameo or just like someone making a reference to Deadpool in this now that they have the rights to this, and same thing with like the X-Men or something like that. Like, I think they just want to combine all parts of the universe into this thing. And I really want to see how that does at the box office, because I feel like that's telling for, like, if it does really well, then they might just be like, all right, start up the next, like, maybe it's not even a superhero franchise, Although obviously it didn't work out well with Universal Monsters, Dark Universe.
Yeah, that's even
But I
something.
mean, they could do it within superheroes too. They might just be like, all right, new Iron Man, new Captain America, and then it's like the new Avengers and the
Right.
young Avengers after that, and the
Mhm.
infant Avengers after that.
God, if you're listening and you exist, please let us be less interested in superheroes. At least in the next decade. I feel like people already feel the fatigue. Where do you go from here? What do you do after this Infinity War?
This has been something they've been hyping up for like the past 3 or 4 years. It feels like
Right.
oh, we're gonna be at Infinity War soon, getting towards Infinity War. Here's the Infinity Stones.
Mm-hmm. Another new trailer that looked exciting. We have A24 putting out a lot of interesting trailers. I mean, we've been big fans of them since really the entire run of this podcast, ever since we saw The Witch and Moonlight and everything. Lady Bird, obviously, but we have the horror movie Hereditary,
Mm-hmm.
and also Bo Burnham's new
Eighth
film.
Grade.
Yeah.
A24 is putting that out?
Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see both of those.
Hereditary looks good. That's April, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, or maybe it's May. But Bo Burnham, I think they just announced it's coming into theaters in July, the 8th grade one.
Well, that's good. That's kind of an interesting release date.
I feel like it kind of makes sense it seems like it's going to be fun and then break your heart.
Right.
I feel like movies like that do also come out in the summer,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It also seems like it takes place in the summer, there's like pool party scenes and
right. Yeah.
I feel like it's like the 8th grade before high school,
Mhm.
8th grade summer before high school or something.
Yeah. No, that'll be a nice release date. I think they even have that one with Burt Reynolds looks good too, and I think that's supposed to come out near the end of the month. It's called like The Last Movie Star or something.
With him and
the girl from
Haley is the older one.
Mm-hmm.
What is her name on Modern Family?
I don't know. Her
Ariel
Ariel Winter.
Yeah.
So that looks pretty good too.
Then also very intrigued by A Quiet Place.
Okay.
Just being John
Mhm.
Krasinski's directorial debut.
Mm-hmm.
Him making it with his wife Emily Blunt.
Mm-hmm.
It just looks like an interesting trailer. I'm preparing myself to be very let down by it, just because some of the later trailers have shown more.
Yeah.
Like I feel like you see like a hand or something at one point,
Mhm.
and I'm just kind of like, all right, I wanted another movie where you don't see anything.
Yeah.
But I also kind of was not. I kind of knew it would go in that direction.
It did get. I mean, again, take it with a grain of salt. I hate like that articles are like, well, South by Southwest loved it, and it's kind of like, yeah, we've been down this road. Like we
I
know.
feel like South by Southwest is it's hard to take that seriously because it's like an actual festival.
Mhm.
Like other ones are
Right.
like, oh, we're gonna watch movies at different theaters, whereas South by Southwest is like bar hopping and drugs and music and food and
You're right.
it's a whole like town-wide thing. And I feel like it's really easy for people to get caught up in the hype of like Austin is amazing, this is amazing, and then
I'd probably love
they see-
every movie
Yeah.
I watched.
I mean, they all probably are an experience.
And you're
to
seeing
watch.
it. You're seeing it months before anybody else will see it, so you really control. I mean, it'd be really shitty to be like, this movie sucks,
Yeah.
kind of. Like it's.
At a premiere, there's probably a Q&A with
Mhm.
John Krasinski and Emily Blunt and whoever afterwards.
But yeah, I will agree. As the more trailers that were released, the less I anticipate it. But I do think we have it in our sights to review. It'll be interesting, especially because
I'm excited to see it either way. Just, I'm always hoping John Krasinski's going to figure out what he does after The Office that works for him.
even
Because he's too good in The Office to just fade into obscurity as he's like slowly doing each year. Like he keeps getting these roles, but
look,
they're
he's
on-
Jack Reacher, Mike.
No, he's Jack Ryan.
Oh, he's Jack Ryan. Jesus,
I am actually like low key excited to
Who
watch
is-
that.
It looks like I don't know. It looks a little disturbing to me, just because like I feel like we forgave 24 is a great show, but we forgave it like in our post 9/11 kind of mentality where we're like, yeah, we should do all this torture kind of, like
I don't
A24.
think Jack Ryan is torturing people.
It looks 24-esque, which I think like kind of.
But 24 was like a superhuman guy who was doing everything himself. Whereas the plot of Jack Ryan, from what I understand, is he's like a desk operative who gets sort of forced into the field. It's kind of Jack Ryan's the character from all the Tom Clancy novels,
right?
Like,
Who's Reacher then?
That's the Tom Cruise one.
But what books aren't those also based off?
If they are, I have no idea.
Okay.
I thought it was just an original.
Maybe he's like based off like those, people who put out like books every month or whatever. One of those kind of like dad paperbacks.
Rather than like greasy, like erotic novels in gas stations and stuff. Jack Reacher.
Yeah. No, I mean it's what you see. It's like what my
It's
dad.
still like a shirtless guy covered in oil, but it's action.
No, it's like what my dad buys at the airport when he's like, "Oh, I got like a 6-hour flight." Cool, action.
Action in a book. That's what everyone likes.
Yeah. I don't know. I can never. Tom Clancy, James Patterson, any sort of action kind of source material in a book, I'm just kind of like, I don't really see one above another.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Have you seen any movies in 2018 that we are not reviewing or haven't reviewed?
Yeah, I should pop up what I have. I think I'm going to pop up my Letterboxd account just because I can't remember exactly what I've seen so far.
I saw When We First Met, I think it's called.
Yes.
Yeah, that would make sense. It's the one with Adam Devine or Adam DeMamp is the character's name, right? And Devine is the actor's name.
Mm-hmm.
It's so confusing because they all took like their actual names for the show and just changed the last names. It was not great. It's the one that's on Netflix. It's got Alexandra Daddario from True Detective and Baywatch.
Yeah.
And like they're all good in it. It's just I don't know. I'll talk about it more on the game night episode when that comes out that we're going to record today. But it's just comedy is so weird lately. Like no one really knows how to like where to go with comedy, I feel like.
Yeah.
And like you get stuff like this where it's like it's a pretty good concept, like, and I'm usually down for like, time travel like romance type stuff.
Right.
Because it's been done really well before. What's that one with Domhnall Gleeson and Rachel McAdams? Did you see that one?
No.
It was really
what
good.
You're talking about.
It was like really cute. It was more drama than, I guess maybe it wasn't really a romantic comedy. There was a romance time travel that had funny elements that was like lighthearted and it was pretty good. So I was hoping this would be something like that. And like this, it has some sweet moments, but it's just not really funny. And there's just a lot of like people overacting or being put in like weird scenarios. Like there's one scenario where like he keeps like time traveling and it's sort of like a thing where he'll do something to set something in motion and then like 3 years, it'll fast forward like 3 years and then he like wakes up and he's discovering like this new life that he's basically set in motion for himself. And like in one of the lives, he's like got like frosted tips and he drives like a, what's that, like 3-wheeled like motorcycle thing. Like he's just a total douchebag and he's wearing like leather pants and stuff. And they go like running through the park and they try to make like a comedy sequence out of just like, we're running through the park like together and he's got leather pants on. It's just, I feel like there was nothing that was really that inventive with like set pieces or where they placed everyone. And it was just very disappointing.
Yeah, I watched some of that movie. I got up to like the part where he time travels for the first time and then meets her back at the party. And I was just kind of like, maybe I'll revisit it. That's like the problem with kind of like my Netflix or like kind of Netflix movies is I don't feel this urgency or I'm not tied to watching the entire movie like I would be in a movie theater. And sometimes that's how
so you
I
were
watch.
bored enough to turn it off.
Right. Yeah, but like I might also finish it in 3 months or something. Like pick back up like on a night when I'm like bored kind of and I can't fall asleep. So that's like I don't know. It's hard to, and then sometimes it's hard to kind of um, put that movie in the ranking that like took me like 3 or 4 months to watch and compare that to something I watched in theaters. Like it is kind of stretching this genre. I've watched a few, and I think they're like all Netflix stuff. I'll probably start with what I thought was the worst, the Polka King or whatever. Um,
Why
it's
does that
like
sound so familiar?
it's Jack Black, Jenny
Oh,
Slate,
the con man
Jason
swindler guy.
Schwartzman, yeah. And from what I understand, I think there's a better documentary about it, and that totally makes sense because everything that happens in it, I was like, yeah, this is like funny, but like it must be so much more funny in a documentary on the terms of like, oh my god, he actually did this. Where like in a film,
In a comedy, you're
yeah,
like,
yeah, you're kind of like, okay, this is pretty subpar. Like, like things have to be just straight up unbelievable in a comedy for it to work really well. So it mostly just became boring and unwatchable. And they have so many funny people in it. It's just kind of like, I don't know. We could, and then also, I'm sure Jack Black was like, I'll take it. I can sing in it. Like it just kind of like it got off the ground because all these different people probably thought they could get different things out of it, and nobody really gets anything. Again, it's one of those things where some of these, that movie in particular, I think it screened in a film fest in 2017, and then now when they release it on Netflix, they release it in like theaters or whatever, or like those theaters in like Los Angeles or wherever they can be like qualified for an Oscar. So I count those as 2018 films. The Cloverfield Paradox that came out right after the Super Bowl, not great. It was kind of just like a bad Black Mirror episode. I don't know. It was just, especially after something like Cloverfield and then 10 Cloverfield Lane, I feel like we expect really high quality. Like, I feel like 10 Cloverfield Lane was all over like our handy nominations. And then for something like this, it's like a really lowbrow kind of sci-fi movie that didn't make sense like a lot logically. Besides that, I watched a stupid and or a futile and stupid gesture.
Oh, that looks good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Apparently, that's also a documentary that's on Netflix. I feel like Netflix just has some sort of business model now where they're just turning documentaries into like
They get the rights to the story,
Yeah.
and they're like, all right, we'll make the fictional one, and we'll put the documentary out as well.
right, yeah. But this is about the guys who founded the National Lampoon. And it was very cool. Shows how the two guys meet in Harvard and everything. I started watching the documentary. Again, that's something that I'll tune into every like 10 minutes at a time. It's not the best casting or the best acted, but there's a lot of, I think, it's directed by David Wayne, who I love. I love like that voice of his that he has. And there's a lot of like really like heartfelt moments because it is kind of a sad story too. You get to be like, especially if you're a fan of SNL and you watch this, you're kind of like, man, fuck them, man. Like they stole this entire idea off of like the National Lampoon or whatever, or at least that's how you feel through like the character and how like fucked over like they kind of get. And I highly recommend you don't look into the movie before watching it. Like don't read a description or anything because there is kind of like this twist that plays off of you not really knowing anything about the National Lampoon. I made the mistake of I was pausing it and then I was looking something up on Wikipedia and I was like, shit, I should have read that. That would have been a really cool twist.
Joel McHale is Chevy Chase, right?
Yeah. And it's not great, but there's like a really great scene.
Have you watched his new show? Just the Joel McHale show?
I love it.
It's pretty good.
It's The Soup. That's it. But
yeah. I forgot how much we used to watch The Soup, and I used to enjoy it.
Oh, that's one of my all-time favorite shows. Yeah, I watch it every week. I never thought there'd be a Netflix show that's like, oh, it's on every week, kind of. And I was like, I doubt this will stick. And I'm like, oh, I can do this like every Monday
It's
or
nice
Tuesday.
to have something that you're not like binging.
Yeah. I wish they did this with all Netflix shows. That's my opinion, but
Like that's why I like HBO shows because they're
Mhm.
still released in that model, and I can still be like, oh, it's Sunday. I can watch Last Week Tonight and
Mhm.
Crashing or Game of Thrones or whatever's on.
I can appropriately digest each individual episode.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that what television, that format is specifically for? I've never been a fan of the binging thing. You can ask anybody. I've always fought against the whole release an entire season model.
I like binging to catch up.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I don't
You
like
know?
that as a release method. That
No.
seems stupid. Like, I feel like you lose so much data, especially now in such a data-driven kind of like entertainment landscape or whatever, and then you lose. I don't know. It's just kind of like everybody goes like signs on, watches a really long movie, and then signs off. You don't have like this returning.
Well, and like I know Netflix bases it on like it's just like there's certain things that data can't cover. Like data can't
Right.
cover the fact that like when we binge quote unquote The Office, it's just because there's nothing else to watch and we put it on and we let it play
Yeah.
for as long as possible.
Mhm.
We're not like
Exactly.
I need to watch another Office episode.
Oh man, what happens next in The Office?
In the show I've
Exactly.
seen 3 times through. You know, like yeah, we binge a lot of things, but I don't know, definitely not for dramatic shows. I don't like the binging method, you know. Like if they want to put like a sitcom out in a bingeable form,
Mhm.
I guess. But even then, like I still I try to limit myself to like if a Netflix show comes out, I watch like maybe 2 episodes a
Yeah.
night
Mhm.
at most.
Because it's something that's a really great point you made about like binging The Office. People just have it on.
Mhm.
People, that's what like almost everybody I know goes to sleep to like Parks and Rec or something. Sabri goes to sleep to Friends. It drives me fucking crazy. But but it's kind of it's like I don't know. It's like somebody giving you an entire cake when I'd rather just have like 12 slices of cake for dessert every night instead of eating an entire cake
Yeah.
one night. Like, yeah, that was a great cake, but it's also kind of like I will watch an entire season of BoJack in one day. Sorry,
It's like
I can't help it. And it's so much more forgettable.
I mean, and they could even have the opportunity to like, you know, release it, you know, like they could do it like twice a week if they wanted to. They don't
Mhm.
have to be tied to the once a week model. And plus, like, it also like it's so much nicer, like on HBO, where something comes out once a week, but you don't have to watch it right then, like you do with like a
Yes.
network
Mhm.
show.
Mhm.
Like I can be like, all right, I'll watch, you know, Crashing tonight, and I'll watch Last Week Tonight the next night,
Right.
you know, and you can like
Mhm.
spread out shows throughout your week that way.
It's also killed the conversation surrounding all those shows. Because if they release all these
It's
shows
out,
on,
and you can't talk about it until you finished it because you don't know where anyone is.
right, no, exactly. It's killed. It was just kind of, I felt like the height of television discussion or analyzation culture was during Breaking Bad. And
Yeah.
since then, even House of Cards, it was kind of like, there's a bunch of spoilers in this. We can't talk about this until everyone finishes the first season. And again, I was trying to watch that fucking show with my parents. Put a bullet in my brain, you know, like it was just like it's so slow, or like they're so slow doing that. And yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of things I don't like about the putting out an entire season. Yeah, binging model.
TV's
But yeah.
in a weird place too.
That's a fantastic movie, and I can't recommend that enough. It's far from perfect, but it's really worth the watch. And then it was just really interesting because I think it premiered at Sundance on like a Friday, and then they released it on like Sunday on Netflix.
Oh, nice.
So that was really cool. And then this is the other movie that I feel like was released in some sort of 2017, technically, Film Fest, but again, then they had some sort of theatrical release in 2018, as well as a Netflix release. And I've heard a lot of buzz. A lot of people talk about this. I haven't heard about a person who hasn't really liked it, but The Ritual. And it's a really, it's just a cool horror movie, and it's a low budget. I feel like it's not like a found footage or anything, but it's just like a creepy in the woods movie. And I got everything I wanted out of that movie that I kind of wanted from this newer Blair Witch. Again, it's kind of like a bro trip in the woods gone awry. That's also even before you start it, kind of soaked in tragedy, and just through and through a lot of the missteps that a lot of horror movies take. This seems to avoid everything, and it works on a bunch of different levels. Again, not entirely perfect movie, but it's maybe one of the best movies I've seen on Netflix that's like a Netflix original. So yeah, especially because I watched that right after Cloverfield, and I was like, okay, this is what I'm talking about. Especially because Netflix has kind of become this dumping ground. We talked about this in another episode. During our Annihilation episode, where it was kind of like, who was that? What production company or studio?
Paramount.
Yeah, Paramount got their hands on 10 Cloverfield Lane, dumped it on Netflix because they were like, you know what? And then they did that with the worldwide release with an Annihilation. I don't know. So it's The Ritual gives me hope that Netflix will not become the future dumping ground of studios who are not confident about movies coming out. Just stick to. I wish Netflix.
But I feel like they put out, like, if you look at like comparatively to like how much stuff actually does come out on Netflix, the percentage of it that's good is so little. I feel like they're confident in the fact that like people aren't really going to cancel their Netflix subscription unless they were going to anyway, regardless of what was on it. You know, like someone's in financial trouble, they're going to cancel their Netflix. But like, there's always that promise of like, well, there's nothing good on Netflix right now, but they redo it every month, so something good could come on next month, and there's always new shows coming out. Like, I don't know, I have a hard time imagining me ever canceling my Netflix subscription.
Definitely. Right,
know?
yeah.
Like,
what would we fall asleep to?
Yeah.
What
I mean, it's how millennials watch TV. We don't like. I don't have a cable subscription.
Right. No,
we don't have a cable subscription. I know very few people that have cable anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Netflix creates pretty good television. That's been proven, but movies, they don't have a great track record. And I really like this idea of them. They go to like Sundance, South by Southwest, several film festivals, and just pick up. They're like, "Can we write a check for every documentary playing here tonight?" Like, and that's great to keep doing that. Like,
they also have the data though. People watch. That's where people watch documentaries now. Is Netflix?
It's just I think they should just do that. They could be like mega A24 if they just pick up all independent. Because if you have like a feature length indie movie, kind of like, it probably doesn't cost that much to buy it from somebody, you know, as opposed to producing something. I think they like the idea of, ooh, we're like a production company, like we're, you know, dealing with these directors, and we made Bright, you know. I mean, but seriously, Bright is like one of that's driving people to Netflix. Are
people really still watching Bright?
Yeah, no, that did. You know, again,
I feel like it fizzled out after like the opening.
Oh no, yeah, definitely. But it definitely, that was their. I don't know. That brought people to Netflix, I think. That was
in anticipation of Bright coming out.
Right, and it was a big success, regardless of how critics viewed it. Yeah.
I haven't really seen anything else from 2018 besides the ones we reviewed.
There's not a lot out.
I haven't really got like a handle on 2018 yet, because I feel like just with like all the end of year stuff that we do for the podcast, like this is the first like weekend, even though we're recording, that I could just be like, all right, it's kind of just a normal weekend again. I can just record like we typically used to and get back into the normal swing of things.
It is weird because we are just now coming into 2018 and we're 3.5 months in on the actual calendar year. But film-wise,
doing the podcast does make the year feel like shifted over.
Yeah, this feels like,
because for us the year doesn't end until the end of February, early March with Oscars. Really,
this is the beginning of a new season of our podcast, though.
Did we talk about the Handies today?
No, we haven't.
The Handies are out because in our last live episode, the Oscar reaction episode, the Handies were not out yet.
Right.
But they are out. We think they're awesome and hilarious. You should definitely go check those out. Leave a comment, like, subscribe if you enjoyed. That's all on our YouTube. So just search the 2018 Handy Awards on YouTube or How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up, and you can find us that way. check it out.
Yeah, it was a success.
Critics everywhere loved it.
I did go to like a party and everyone was like, "Hey man, that was like really great, like the handies or whatever." Just because I was saying a few people that have been guests on How Many Fingers, and it's great to have this kind of like ever expanding like guest family where like they keep following you after. Like if anything, like maybe most of our viewers are just people who have been on the podcast.
We've talked about that before.
We're just
every
building
time
our
we have
own
someone as a
audience.
guest, we just get a new viewer.
Yeah. I'm surprised no previous guests have jumped on our live. It's
Yeah, seriously.
yeah. Everyone's out celebrating St. Patrick's Day, which is why you can review this on Facebook, which most of you do.
And we'll repost it on YouTube as well when
yeah.
I get the chance to edit it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but I think that's probably it for us today.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we're going to go record our 3 episodes, so stay tuned for Red Sparrow, Game Night, and Disney Oprah's A Wrinkle in Time.
And join our
that's
How
right,
Many
yes.
Fingers Am I Holding Up, the Facebook group. Type that into the search bar. We appreciate if you have liked our official Facebook page, but we also have a separate discussion group where we can talk about movies.
Yeah, and it's just talking about movies. It's not us talking about the podcast or our episodes.
It's not extra promo for us.
We've been a part of movie groups in the past. We wanted to have our own that we could control, just because there were things that we didn't necessarily like about the other movie groups that we were a part of. And I don't know. I mean, that's the whole reason we started this podcast, is because we love talking about movies, sharing movie news. I get more like movie news notifications on my phone than like actual news.
Oh, no, yeah.
Stuff. So just a place to share articles, reviews, theories, trailers, stuff like that, and just, talk about it with like-minded people. We've already had a few people join, a few people sharing stuff, just their thoughts on movies that came out, and people commenting and contributing. So we'd love to have you be a part of it. So again, search How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up, the Facebook group on Facebook.
And I feel like we'll talk about that in these upcoming episodes. I definitely do want to make a big push where I invite maybe everybody who's like the one page to come to this discussion group. Again, because this week a lot of people have started talking in it, and I'm like, well, I want to get everybody involved. So yeah, you guys can look forward to that. And if you don't want to join it, just ignore my requests.
Like you do with everything else.
I'll only hate you forever.
All right. So everyone enjoy your St. Patrick's Day. Be safe, responsible. Call a cab if you need. And we're going to stay in and get much more drunk and review some movies. So we'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Bye.